Shalom, this is David Ben Shul from utom.org, utom.org, Universal Truth in Mankind. Truth surrounds us. I'm going to turn this around because I'm still in Tennessee and I'm enjoying the surrounding, and really you should all see what I see. Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm at the hawk's nest again, looking down. Watching the dogs. Actually, they're playing in the water down there. They were. I don't know where they are now. I just got to call them when I'm ready to leave, and they will take me home. Well, my second home, I guess you could say. An individual, Gian Harris, asked about sin, and I felt it's, trying to grapple the understanding of sin. I can tell by the question. So I wanted to deal with sin a little bit more directly. I know I allude to things in my posts because I try not to get into detail, because sometimes people just are not ready for the details. They don't want to know the details. It's not of interest. So I try to keep things general until somebody says, "Hey, what about?" And then I try to go in specifics at that point into the details. So I'm going to deal with the concept of sin. Sin, as we know, in Hebrew is kata, which means error. So all it means is an error. Now, the problem with sin is what we've turned it into. Sin has been turned into being, how do I say this? The worst crime you could possibly commit. And because of it, we're so guilty that God can't even look upon us, is what some of us are taught. Well, that's not what sin's about. Sin is error. Error happens because you don't have all the information. You ever make a plan for a trip or a vacation, or you're going to build a little something in the backyard, you're going to do whatever, and then what happens? You plan, you think you got all the contingencies in place, you think you have all the materials you need, and then all of a sudden as you start, you discover you're lacking something. Well, that's sin. Now, does that mean that that's a moral issue? Not necessarily. Sin just means, like I said, we're lacking. We don't have everything. We're using our five senses to the best of our ability, and our mind at the same time, and trying to come up with a plan, trying to come up with a means of creating something. Now, we have to understand that we are incomplete. We were designed with error. Because without error, we cannot possibly understand our need for the Creator. If we were perfect in every way, then we wouldn't need anything, would we? Of course not. So the idea of sin being present in our lives is because we lack, because we're incomplete. And that's a simple idea. Now, I understand. If you or me or somebody sits around and says, I don't like that guy, I'm going to murder him. That's also a sin. But that's one is sin based upon not knowing something or having complete information. Another sin is premeditated. Now, premeditated sin is something that is severe and creates a separation between us and the Creator. Now, how does it create a separation? It creates a separation by our will transcending God's will. It's as simple as that. So our will is in contention with the Creator. So you have one sin that's occurring because, maybe you say, hey, I want to build this hospital because people need to be healed. So, and you have the money and the resources, and God seems to be blessing you in that direction. So you are trying to create it. Now, it doesn't come out perfectly right. It's because you're trying to do the will of the Creator, but you may not have a clear vision of that will. And so there's going to be some, well, discretions. Not willful discretions, but just because you ain't perfect. You don't have a perfect, clear vision of the Creator's will. But the other is, you know it's wrong to murder, and you do it. It's premeditated. So the separation is in our mind. The separation is in our awareness and desire to have a relationship with the Creator. If we want to willfully sin, then we are losing our connection, our focus, our fear of the Creator. So what does that mean when you have that? It means that the only way to come back from that type of sin is by changing your mind, changing your focus, fearing Hashem. That's it. And once that your mind is back in order, then you're back in a much more clearer connection with the Creator. You don't always lose the connection. You can't, because if you lost the connection entirely, you wouldn't have a need for a connection or a better connection with the Creator. So please don't try to sell me on, well, if you believe in this or that, now you will have a relationship with the Creator. Nope, that's not the way it works. It's not the way it works. So this concept of sin needs to be defined in our heads. We use only one word to handle several instances. Now what's interesting is that when you do read the Torah, you do find words like iniquity. You do find sin. And you do find evil. And what are these three things? Because those three are what should be studied, and those three should be understood in their own context, and those three will help you understand that a human sacrifice is just not possible. Sin, error, okay? Sin is when somebody makes a mistake unwittingly. Period. It's an error. Oh, craps, I sinned. I made a mistake. I erred. All right, what am I going to do to fix it? You fix it, and that's the end of it, right? No hard feelings. You took responsibility, and now sin does not have a hold on you. Let's say you commit a sin, or a sin occurs in your life, and then all of a sudden you start thinking to yourself, well, you know, I think I'm glad it happened. Now you start getting to iniquity. Iniquity is where you have committed an error with the wrong intentions. Let's put it that way. You try to do the right thing and you sin. That's one kind of error in your life. Iniquity. It's when you are, well, you ain't using your brains, man. Now, let's go to the opposite extreme. Evil. Committing evil. Evil, as I've said before, is the word Ra. Don't associate that with the Egyptian word Ra, or Egyptian god Ra, because we're talking about Hebrew, not Egyptian. You can't go from language to language like that and say it's the same thing. Evil is eyes first, meaning our senses have taken over. So we live according to our senses. Our senses to the point where we forget, or we ignore, actually is probably a better word. We ignore the spiritual dimension of ourselves, because we do have a sixth sense. And when I say sixth sense, I'm not talking about where you're sitting at a table or you're in a full room and all of a sudden you have this feeling that something horrible happened to a friend of yours and you find out it's right. I don't mean that type of sixth sense. I'm talking about a sixth sense where there is a soul connection between you and the Creator. When you ignore that and put your five senses ahead of that and the well-being of yourself according to your five senses, that's what evil is. So morally, you're morally wrong at that point, are you not? See, that's why the offerings in the Torah, really the proper word is korban. And I'm not going to get into that. I've already talked about that in a video called Passover Korban. You can listen to that on your own. Is when that offering is accepted, it's doing a couple of things. Number one, it's saying that it's a sin that occurred out of an error. It was not on purpose. It was not your ignorance. That's a new word. Ignorance or ignoring the spiritual side of yourself, your soul, your upper soul. It's a confirmation that it was just a plain error. To error is human type thing that took place. And it's also confirmation that the person did right in how they corrected the situation. And that's what a sin offering, sin sacrifice is about. That's all. That's all it was about. Nothing more, nothing less. So there's no need for a human sacrifice or a God sacrifice. If we understood sin properly, we would discover that it's okay to be human. It's what you do about it after the fact. That's what makes the difference. Oh, craps, I screwed up. I'm so sorry. Let me fix it. I know what I need to do. I'm going to go do it and make this right. Okay? That's what sin's about. Iniquity? You stupid bum. Come on. What's your problem? You know the right thing to do and you're ignoring the facts. That's something that takes place when you're not thinking clearly. So what's the answer to that one? Sit down and start learning. I can hear the dogs in the water down there. Sit down and start learning. There's no sin offering for that. Well, I'm sorry. There are. I apologize. There are for that. Because it was not entirely due to lack of thought. Because of your lack of thinking or your lack of knowledge or lack of understanding of something, and we don't all know everything, so we all fall in that category at some point or not, we do, by default, fall victim to our five senses. To our physical nature. But those who say, well, I'm going to have this guy murdered or I'm going to steal his money because, it's strictly business, nothing personal, that's evil. There is absolutely no corbans for those. Offering, sacrifice, whatever you want to call them, even though those are not the proper translation. All right, so I hope this is clearing things up. If there's more questions, I'll be happy to answer them and clarify even more. But I'm going to be honest with you. We, on a religious level, are victims. Most of us, if not all of us, are victims of philosophical beliefs. And that's what a religion is philosophical belief. We've been victimized by religions to control us, to keep us in place, to keep us from straying from their brand of a belief system, while ignoring Torah. And if you don't know Torah, I guess what happens? You become victim of your five senses. You become a victim of ignorance. Something to think about. I wish you a wonderful week. I'll be heading home, I guess, today or tomorrow. And I will no longer be in beautiful Tennessee here. Take care. Shalom, shalom.